Take a look at this tree, guys. It's right by the lines. It's unhealthy. This, is not the correct way to prune a tree, because you're leaving too much stump and it could cause decay. The correct way you prune a tree is, you see where this part is that's kind of swollen? That's the branch collar. So what you want to do is you want to cut it at an angle. You don't want to cut straight down, because that's called a flush cut. And flush cuts could cause decay, and it also cuts the tree's defense mechanism. Well, we're going to be taking this whole tree down, so I'm just showing you, you have to cut like that much off. But this is starting to decay. And if you was to go this way, you have to cut it like that. See how I'm cutting it? Like that. And you can also cut it into a V like this to keep the collar connected. Because you want to leave the collar, so that's like the correct way to prune it if you're going this way. But you'll have to go like that out at an angle. So you want to do your undercut first. So when you cut the log off, it will be an even cut. But this one's been trimmed from the lines that you can see right there, and that big one is also trimmed away from the lines. The homeowner is not home, so they want this tree cut down. And my best friend Melanie is here. She's getting all the tools and stuff ready. But this is an example of not a healthy pruning. This is not a very good pruning. And if you were to cut from here, you would have to cut like that. You have to cut at an angle like this. That's how you were to cut it, because the V is kind of too close and the branch kind of go down to here. So you got to cut it like that. Just how I made this cut right here. You cut it like that. That's how you were to remove this part. Right there. But this tree is going to be taken down today. The whole thing. It's bigger than a house. The whole thing is completely coming down. And also, you can see at the base that it's got this stuff right here. So I'm going to be flush cutting all the way to the ground for the stump. And these are the trees that the people was removing, the bushes right there. But this tree is going to come down today. So the people got an electric pole saw. And when Melanie takes over the camera, I'm going to show you how to cut this tree down. These were some branches from over here from maybe another tree. And that's an odd oblong shaped cut. I've never seen that before. And also, some of these plants to identify, some of this stuff is poison ivy. But that's a very oblong cut. Now to tell that if someone has flush cut a tree, it's flush cut leaves oval wounds, while a normal proper cut leaves a circle cut. So a proper cut has to be circle, because if it's oval, then it's flush cut, and that's not the healthy way to cut a tree, because you're going too far into the trunk and taking off the defense mechanism. The bark ridge is right here, the collar is like right here, and the defense mechanism is in between the collar and the bark ridge. But the collar is what helps the wound heals faster. because if you cut too much into the trunk, it's going to slowly heal and it's going to decay. Now this cut was kind of made a little bit unhealthy because you can see this is decaying and this is healing around it. Now if I were to take my saw, you would actually have to grind out much as you can with your saw without cutting the part that's healing. So without you touching it, you would have to grind as much as you can off with the chainsaw without you touching the other part. So I say cut like this very carefully. And when the piece falls off like that, that's the proper way you make the cut. But sometimes you have to cut flat up here also to remove this. See how I'm removing it? Now you don't want to touch this part right here that's healing up because it's pulling a callus over the wound. But that's an example of a kind of a healthy cut and a kind of an improper cut. But this tree is different, so you have to use your techniques to be able to tell to cut it correctly. But this is a big tree, guys. And that's their pole chainsaw right there. It's probably an 8-inch. So that means if I were to cut the tree to the ground, I would have to cut it on one side and then cut it on the other side. But this tree is not going to be so difficult to take down. But you have to watch the lines. So another way to cut a tree is you always remove this branch first. It's so you have enough room to get to the second branch and be able to fell it this way. Because you want to cut a notch out like that. You want to cut about this far in and then also cut right there. Because you don't want to cut a little bit into the tree, because if you cut on this side, it could barber chair and split all the way up the tree, and then once it falls, it could hit you. And when it hit you, that's when it could be dangerous. So barber chairs are dangerous also. And that's another thing that I learned over the years I've been watching trees. It's because some people don't make the notch big enough. You have to make the notch even. Because if you cut up here and you make the notch down here, then it's not going to have much to hold on. And it's going to fall very fast. And if you also cut too low on the notch, then it could happen the same thing. So once Melanie gets the tool ready, I'm going to have her record, and I'm going to show you how to cut this tree down. It's an electric chainsaw, so it's got a cord to it. It's a pole chainsaw, but I may not be able to reach all the way up there to get the branches, so I may have to fell one of these branches off. And I'm going to show you how to fell it, but I'm going to cut the stubs off first. And I'm going to show you the correct way to prune a tree when I'm cutting the stubs off. So
your gloves, these are crap it.
Yeah, and when you cut a tree also, guys, when you're felling a bunch of branches, you want to remove them out the way, is so you won't get hurt. So when you cut after like 2 or good 3 big branches, you want to move them out the way before you cut another load of branches. Just to let you know. That's another technique I learned over the past few months. It's safety. You have to wear safety glasses too, which I got them on right now. Because you do not want to get stuff in your eye. And when the tree is falling, you have to make your escape route. So if I were to fell this tree going this way, I would run that way. So I'm going to show you how to fell a tree and the correct way to prune a tree if you were to trim it. But like I said, this whole tree is going to be removed, so we're going to be cutting it all the way down to here. And also, it's a root cut because when you cut at the base, you see this odd shape. The pole chainsaw has an extension on it, so I might be able to reach up there and get some of the branches first. And also, we're going to be using the rope today to pull this branch towards me. And why? Because the lines is right there, and you do not ever want the branch to hit the lines because it could knock the person's power out. One, it could knock the power out, and two, it could be an electrical fire. Because power lines are very sensitive, and sometimes the branch does not have to touch the power line to activate it. Melanie's gonna climb up there and use the rope to tie around that branch right there. You can see where she's putting it. That's my best friend, guys. We've been tree cutting for a long time in the premises of her condo complex. And I got a couple videos of me removing a big branch also. But this is what it looks like when you put a rope up there for that big branch right there. Because we're going to remove this big guy first and then that one. That one comes last. I unpaused it. Okay, guys.
So this is Sean, my friend, who's the boss, tree cutting boss. This is his tree cutting service.
Sean's tree service.
Yes, he's 15. My name is Melanie.
And another way, you do not ever want the chainsaw to go into the ground.
Right, because the blade gets dull. You do not want the chain to...
Now, the correct way to prune it, I want you to go from the side here, Melanie. The correct way you prune this tree, guys, is you want to make an angle cut out this way. The correct way to prune the branch is you want to make an angle like that. See how I cut it? This is the correct way to prune a tree, is so it can provide healing. But sometimes you do not want to get into that branch, but since we're removing the whole thing, you don't have to worry about it. And also, this one comes off too.
So what part of the tree is that called that you're cutting into?
That's called the collar. You do not want to go under the collar. Because it could damage the defense mechanism.
So Sean Jr. is 15. He turned 16 in September. He got his own chainsaw, a 10-inch blade, pole chainsaw, battery operated.
That's an example of a flush cut. This is not the correct way to prune a tree because you're going too far into the trunk area. Now, the white part you see here is the defense mechanism, and this is the collar right here. Now you cut way too far into the collar, and that's why the wound is oval instead of circle. So that's not the correct way to prune a tree.
Are you still cutting branches off? Okay. Could you stand on the other side so the wind doesn't blow?
Yeah. Now that's called a stub cut. And you're leaving too much out for the branch to not heal up. That's too far out for you to leave, and that's not going to heal up properly. That can be decay. The branch would decay, and it also would hurt the tree. So you have to swing it at an angle like this. Just like that, guys. And then when you're done, you can also cut a little bit more. Like that. That's the correct way.
Okay.
Now, I'm going to show you how to fell the tree.
One moment. I'm going to put you on pause.